We are going to ask you to do something a little different right off the bat today. I want you to just sit back and imagine an ancient text.
But not just your standard, dry historical record.
No, not at all. I want you to imagine a world filled with towering giants that stand hundreds of feet tall, literally darkening the skies.
Picture a conspiracy of rebel angels descending from the heavens.
And not just to wreak generalized havoc, but with a highly specific mission: to teach humanity the illicit, closely guarded secrets of making swords, forging armor, and perhaps most surprisingly, how to apply cosmetics.
Which is such a wild detail.
It really is. Imagine being taken on this dizzying cosmic tour through crystal palaces that burn with fire but are paradoxically as cold as ice.
Right.
And then right in the middle of all this apocalyptic chaos, you encounter a glowing, magical baby whose eyes illuminate an entire house like the midday sun.
It sounds like the ultimate fantasy epic, doesn't it? I mean, if you heard that premise in a movie theater today, you'd think it was the latest sci-fi blockbuster.
Oh, 100%.
But what we are actually looking at is one of the most fascinating, complex, and deeply influential ancient documents in human existence.
Exactly. Our mission today is to summarize and unpack the Book of Enoch.
Specifically focusing on the dense, rich text excerpts we have from chapters 1 through 105.
Right. Our goal is to take this absolute mountain of wild imagery, these really intense prophetic warnings, and this incredibly intricate cosmic lore, and just distill it all down into a cohesive journey for you.
We want to synthesize it so you can truly grasp the scale, the architecture, and the profound psychology of what is happening inside these pages.
And it is absolutely crucial that we set the right tone for this journey with you.
Yes. We need to frame this text not merely as a collection of bizarre, disjointed, hallucinatory visions.
Because it's not.
It's not. When you really dig into it, it is a profoundly deep exploration of human anxiety. It deals with the sheer terror of forbidden knowledge, the absolute crushing weight of divine justice, and this fascinating underlying cultural obsession with the mechanical clockwork order of the universe.
Which we will definitely get into. But I also want to remind you, as we always do, that our role here is to impartially report the contents of the text.
Right. The Book of Enoch contains heavy themes of divine judgment, the corruption of political kings, and absolute cosmic authority.
We are not taking sides or endorsing any religious, ethical, or politically charged viewpoints you might hear in these visions today.
We are simply acting as your guides through the original source material.
Exploring an ancient worldview that shaped so much of the literature that followed it. Okay, let's unpack this. Because we really have to start with the foundational story that kicks everything off.
The catalyst for the whole thing.
Exactly. We are going to look at the narrative that sets the stage for every single vision Enoch experiences. According to the text, the whole cascade of earthly destruction begins with the fall of a specific elite group of angels.
Known as the Watchers.
The Watchers. And the text is incredibly precise here. It tells us that exactly 200 of these angels, led by figures named Samyaza and Azazel, descend upon a geographic location called Mount Armin.
And they aren't just falling from grace by accident.
No, or like slipping up in their duties. They descend with a highly specific, deliberate, and organized intent.
To take human wives.
Right.
And the deliberation is what makes the opening of this text so striking. It's not a story of accidental temptation.
Mm-hmm.
The text details how their leader, Samyaza, is actually hesitant. But not out of morality. He's worried about the consequences.
You knows what's coming.
He says to the other angels, "I feared that you may perhaps be indisposed to the performance of this enterprise, and that I alone shall suffer for so grievous a crime." He knows exactly the magnitude of the cosmic boundary they are about to cross. So the rest of the angels answer him and agree to a formal pact.
They bind themselves by mutual execrations.
Yes.
Let's pause on that word for a second. Execrations. That means they are swearing mutual curses upon themselves if any of them back out, right?
Precisely. They are forming a conspiracy. They all swear together on the top of Mount Armin, effectively saying, "May we be eternally damned if we do not follow through with this."
It is a calculated, premeditated rebellion against the celestial order.
They are abandoning their posts as divine observers to become active, illicit participants in the mortal realm.
And the result of the celestial conspiracy is just absolute nightmare fuel.
It really is.
The text says the women conceive and bring forth giants. But we aren't talking about unusually tall men like an ancient basketball team.
Bro, not at all.
The text specifically states their stature was each 300 cubits.
Which
Let's just do the math on that for you listening. Yeah. An ancient cubit is roughly 18 inches.
Right.
300 cubits means these giants were 450 feet tall.
It's an unfathomable scale.
That is taller than the Statue of Liberty. Imagine a being taller than the Great Pyramid of Giza roaming the ancient Middle East.
Terrifying.
And their appetite is apocalyptic. The text says these giants devoured all the labor that men produced. You can imagine the agricultural terror, whole fields of crops swallowed in a single bite.
And when it became impossible for humanity to feed them anymore, the giants turned on the humans.
They began to devour men.
Yeah.
Then, when the human population was decimated, they turned to the animals.
Birds, beasts, reptiles, and fishes.
Eating their flesh and drinking their blood. It is a portrait of complete and total ecological collapse brought on by an invasive, unnatural species.
The ecological devastation is total. But alongside the physical destruction caused by the sheer mass of these giants, there is a secondary, arguably much more destructive element introduced to humanity by the Watchers.
Right.
And this is the concept of forbidden knowledge, or what we might think of as the forbidden tech of the ancient world.
Oh, this part is so interesting.
The text details exactly what these fallen angels taught humanity, and the list is incredibly revealing regarding the anxieties of the era. Azazel, for instance, taught men to make swords, knives, shields, and breastplates.
He is introducing the machinery of advanced warfare.
Exactly.
And this is the part of the text that feels so alien to a modern reader, because it puts weapons of war in the exact same category of sin as makeup.
Yes.
Azazel doesn't just teach the forging of swords. The text explicitly states he teaches the fabrication of mirrors, the workmanship of bracelets and ornaments, the use of paint, the beautifying of the eyebrows, and the use of all sorts of colorful dyes.
It says, because of this, the world became altered.
Think about that. Imagine you were living in an era where the sword is cutting-edge technology.
Right.
When Enoch tells you that the sword wasn't invented by a smart human blacksmith, but downloaded to humans by a demon, and then he says that inventing eyeliner is an equal offense.
It's a fascinating juxtaposition, isn't it?
It really is.
But it makes perfect sense when you understand the psychology of this worldview. It highlights a very specific ancient anxiety about vanity, deception, and the obscuring of truth.
Okay, unpack that a bit more.
In this cosmological framework, anything that artificially alters the natural, God-given state of the world is viewed as illicit, destructive technology.
See.
Digging up the earth to mine metals, forging them in fire to create weapons that cut people down, that's a violation of the natural order.
Makes sense.
Similarly, mining stones and extracting dyes to paint a face, to create an artificial appearance, to seduce someone, or forging a mirror to gaze at your own reflection, that is also a violation.
So both the sword and the mirror are tools of artificial power.
Exactly. One dominates the body, the other dominates the mind and the social order through deception.
That is profound. It's the idea that humans were never meant to have these artificial enhancements.
And it goes further than just metallurgy and cosmetics. Other Watchers teach different forbidden sciences.
Right, Amazarach teaches sorcery and the dividing of roots.
Essentially, dark botany and spellcraft.
Barkayal teaches the observers of the stars. Tamiel teaches astronomy, and Aseradel teaches the motion of the moon.
They are essentially downloading unauthorized celestial data into the human race.
Yeah.
They are giving humanity the cheat codes to the universe before humanity has the spiritual maturity to handle them.
Exactly. So if you look at the state of the Earth at this point in the narrative, humanity is armed to the teeth with iron swords.
Covered in deceptive makeup.
Practicing dark sorcery.
And getting eaten alive by 450-foot-tall giants.
The Earth is literally screaming. The text says, and men, being destroyed, cried out, and their voice reached to heaven.
Which brings us to the divine response.
Yes. You have the heavy hitters of heaven, the archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Suriel, and Uriel.
Looking down.
Seeing the massive quantity of blood shed on Earth, and they take this appeal directly to the Most High. They act almost like cosmic prosecutors.
Yes, they bring the indictment to the divine throne.
But wait, I have a probing question here for you.
Sure.
If God is entirely omniscient in this text, why are the archangels acting like prosecutors bringing him the news? Is the text implying God somehow didn't notice the massive giants destroying the ecosystem, or is this more about the legal formality of a divine courtroom?
That is an excellent question, and it cuts right to the heart of ancient Near Eastern theology.
Huh?
It is entirely about the legal formality.
Okay.
This is the concept of the divine council. In this worldview, God doesn't just act unilaterally and randomly. God governs the universe through a structured, highly legalistic royal court.
So everyone has a role to play.
Exactly. The angels have jurisdictions. They're the watchers, the record keepers, the prosecutors. Bringing the case to God isn't about informing him of something he doesn't know.
Right.
It's about following the exact judicial procedure of the cosmos. The ledger of human suffering has to be formally read aloud in the heavenly court before the decree of judgment can be legally issued.
It underscores the text's obsession with order.
Yes, even divine wrath is bureaucratic and perfectly procedural.
That makes perfect sense. The universe operates on a rigid legal framework. And when the judgment is finally issued, it is incredibly swift and intensely specific.
Very targeted.
God doesn't just issue a blanket punishment or a generic flood right away. He hands out targeted sentences to the ringleaders.
He orders the archangel Raphael to bind Azazel hand and foot.
And cast him into the darkness of the desert of Dewdale. He is to be thrown under hurled, jagged stones and covered with absolute darkness, remaining there forever until he is cast into the ultimate fire on the great day of judgment.
It's solitary confinement in a jagged, lightless abyss.
And Gabriel is given an equally brutal, poetic task. He is sent to the giants, who the text calls the children of fornication, in order to incite them against one another.
He doesn't strike them down directly.
No, he is told to excite their violent nature so they perish by mutual slaughter.
The very weapons and violence their fathers brought to earth will be their undoing.
It's almost like a containment protocol. Let the destructive elements annihilate each other.
And then there's Samyaza, the leader of the pact.
Right.
Michael is told to go and announce his crime to him, force Samyaza to watch the slaughter of his giant sons, and then bind him and his associates underneath the earth for 70 generations.
70 generations.
What's fascinating here is how this completely recontextualizes the whole story for a modern reader.
How so?
Think about how it reframes the narrative of human corruption. In many ancient traditions, and certainly in the dominant narratives we are familiar with today, the downfall of the world is blamed entirely on human frailty.
Humans ate the fruit, humans sinned, humans are inherently broken.
Exactly. But the Book of Enoch places a massive, undeniable portion of the blame squarely on the intrusion of illicit celestial knowledge.
Yes.
The text explicitly says all the earth has been corrupted by the effects of the teaching of Azazel. To him, therefore, ascribe the whole crime.
Ascribe the whole crime. That is a massive theological statement.
It really is.
It's like saying humans were just innocent bystanders who were handed a loaded gun. The fault lies with the entity who handed over the weapon, knowing what it would do.
Precisely. The core anxiety of the text isn't just that humans are naturally evil, it's that humanity was contaminated by advanced predatory forces.
We were given tools, both literal and conceptual, that we were fundamentally ill-equipped to manage.
And while all this massive judgment is being handed down, our title character, Enoch, has a very unique role.
Because Enoch isn't just a passive observer.
Yeah.
The text says he was concealed from humanity and no mortal knew where he was. He is actively commissioned by God as the scribe of righteousness.
His job is to cross the boundary between realms and deliver a message of absolute doom to the fallen watchers.
And think about the irony here. These powerful, towering celestial beings who rebelled and subjugated the earth are actually terrified of a human man.
They tremble and beg Enoch to write a memorial of supplication for them.
Essentially, they want him to draft a legal petition asking God for forgiveness.
They recognize his unique standing in the divine court, but it does them no good.
Enoch writes the petition, but the request is flatly, unequivocally denied. He has to return and tell them, "Never shall you ascend into heaven. Your request will not be granted you."
And it is immediately after delivering this devastating final news to the watchers that Enoch experiences his incredible cosmic tour.
We're moving from the earthly corruption directly into the heavenly courtroom, and the transition is stark. Enoch's ascent into heaven is one of the most vivid, mind-bending sequences ever recorded in ancient literature.
The visual language he uses to describe the divine realm is overwhelming. He is trying to articulate the ineffable, the things the human eyes were never meant to process.
He describes being invited by clouds and a mist, feeling propelled forwards by agitated stars and flashes of lightning, with powerful winds assisting his flight.
There's a very dynamic ascent.
He arrives at a massive wall built entirely with stones of crystal, and this wall is surrounded by a vibrating flame.
A vibrating flame.
He actually has to enter this vibrating flame to proceed, and he comes to a spacious habitation that is also built of crystal stones. But here is the part that forces you to abandon earthly logic.
Okay.
He describes this dwelling as being paradoxically hot as fire and cold as ice.
That sensory contradiction is brilliant.
Isn't it?
Saying something is hot as fire and cold as ice is a classic mystical technique for describing an encounter with the truly alien, the truly divine.
Because it just doesn't compute.
Exactly. In our physical world, a state cannot be simultaneously freezing and burning. But Enoch is in a realm where standard physics do not apply. The architecture itself is made of impossible elements.
He goes on to describe a second habitation, even more spacious than the first. He says the floor is literally on fire, and the roof above him is blazing fire.
And inside this fiery expanse is an exalted throne.
He says its appearance was like that of frost, yet underneath it, massive rivers of flaming fire issued forth. And sitting upon it is the Great One, wearing a robe brighter than the sun and whiter than snow.
The contrast of frost and fire, snow and sun, represents absolute, unapproachable purity and power.
Right.
The text explicitly notes that no angel could even look upon his face, and a fire of great extent continued to rise up before him.
It's a portrait of a terrifyingly clean, perfectly ordered authority.
Standing in direct, harsh contrast to the bloody, chaotic, muddy mess the watchers made of the earth below.
And Enoch's journey doesn't end at the throne room. He doesn't just get a glimpse of God and go home.
No, he is taken on a guided cosmic tour by the angels Uriel and Raphael.
They take him behind the scenes of reality to show him the inner workings, the literal mechanics of the universe.
He visits the receptacles of the winds.
Literally the vast cosmic storage containers for the weather.
He sees the foundational stone that supports the corners of the earth and the actual geographic place where heaven and earth end.
But the most striking things he sees are the prisons of the cosmos.
Yes, the architecture of the universe, in Enoch's view, isn't just clouds and light. It includes vast, inescapable penitentiaries for celestial beings who step out of line.
He is taken to a desolate spot, a place he describes as an absolute void, having neither an established earth below nor an exalted heaven above.
And there, in this empty terror, he sees 7 stars bound together.
He describes them as looking like great mountains blazing with fire. Imagine looking up at the night sky and realizing some of those stars are actually in a cosmic penitentiary.
When Enoch asks what they are, Uriel explains that these are the stars which transgress the commandment of God by not arriving in their proper season.
That is a crucial detail. Their crime was a failure of punctuality.
They did not arrive in their proper season. In the Enochian worldview, the greatest virtue is perfect, mechanical obedience to the cosmic schedule.
So a star that alters its course or its timing is committing a severe rebellion.
And is imprisoned just like a fallen angel. He is also shown a massive abyss filled with struggling columns of fire.
The eternal prison prepared for the fallen watchers we discussed earlier.
And it's not just angels and stars that assigned holding cells. Enoch is taken to the extreme west of the universe to see the receptacle of the dead.
He describes looking into deep, capacious, and very smooth cavities. He specifically says they are as smooth as if it had been rolled over, and they are completely dark.
This is the waiting room.
Right. This is where the souls of the dead are kept until the final day of judgment.
And what stood out to me here was a very specific, chilling detail Enoch notices.
The voice.
He hears his solitary voice reaching up to heaven, constantly accusing someone. When he asks the angel Raphael whose spirit it is that is crying out so relentlessly, Raphael tells him it is the spirit of Abel.
Who was slain by his brother Cain.
Abel's spirit is continuously complaining and accusing his brother, and the text says he will do this until Cain's seed perishes from the entire earth.
That detail about Abel is profound.
It speaks directly to the listener's innate sense of justice. It shows that in this cosmological framework, injustice isn't just forgotten when you die.
Time doesn't heal all wounds in the afterlife.
The cosmic ledger remains completely open. Abel's blood still cries out.
The text also explains that within this receptacle of the dead, there are 3 separations made between the spirits to divide the righteous from the sinners.
They are separated by a deep chasm, by a body of water, and by light above it.
It's a highly structured, almost bureaucratic afterlife. Every single soul has its exact place, its boundary, and its designated waiting area until the court is convened.
Which means Enoch isn't just looking at the physical architecture of heaven. He's looking at the ticking clock of divine justice.
And when he looks at the future, the tone of his visions completely shifts. The text moves into what are called the similitudes, or the 3 parables of Enoch.
The focus pivots from the geography of hell and the origins of giants to a massive, impending future judgment.
Led by very specific, revolutionary heavenly figures.
Yes, the parables introduce us again to the Ancient of Days, a figure we saw earlier on the throne, described as having a head like pure white wool.
But alongside him, there is a new crucial figure.
Enoch sees someone whose countenance resembles that of a man, full of grace, like one of the holy angels. This figure is called the Son of Man, or interchangeably, the Elect One.
Enoch asks his angelic guide about this figure, and the angel explains that the Elect One has a very specific, aggressively disruptive role to play in the future.
Disruptive is putting it mildly.
The text says, this Son of Man will reveal all the treasures of that which is concealed. But then it gets incredibly political.
It says he will raise up kings and the mighty from their comfortable couches and drag the powerful from their thrones.
The text says he will loosen the bridles of the powerful and break in pieces the teeth of sinners.
He's going to hurl earthly kings from their dominions, specifically because they refuse to exalt and praise the Lord of Spirits, trusting instead in their massive riches and the oppressive systems they built with their own hands.
It's a vision of total violent upheaval of earthly power structures. And again, we're just reporting the text here, not taking a stance on modern politics, but
you have to consider who the original audience for this text was.
Right.
It is an incredibly comforting, vindicating vision for an oppressed people. Imagine living under the boot of an untouchable, wealthy elite class or a brutal foreign empire.
The idea that the corrupt, untouchable kings of the world, the people who seem to get away with everything, will eventually be physically dragged from their thrones and have their teeth broken by a divine, unstoppable force.
A powerful fantasy of justice.
It's the ultimate leveling of the playing field. But the judgment the Son of Man brings isn't just about dealing with corrupt politicians. The text also prepares for this final day with some truly massive mythological elements.
This is the part of the text that feels like it steps straight out of a modern sci-fi or fantasy epic.
We get introduced to two massive cosmic entities that are being kept in reserve.
Ah, yes, the monsters.
Enoch describes two great monsters that are physically separated and prepared as food for the day of judgment.
You have Leviathan,
a massive female monster dwelling in the deepest ocean depths above the springs of waters.
And then you have Behemoth,
a colossal male monster moving through the invisible wilderness called Dendan, which is located east of the Garden of the Elect.
It's tempting to view them just as ancient kaiju. But if we look deeper into the cosmology, Leviathan and Behemoth are the primordial chaos beasts.
They represent the untamed, destructive forces of nature.
The crushing depths of the ocean, the harsh, unyielding expanse of the desert. The fact that God has them separated and contained in specific geographic locations is a testament to divine control.
He keeps the cosmological chaos in check,
holding them in reserve for the end of days.
And this perfectly illustrates how the text constantly weaves the spiritual and the physical together. In the exact same breath that Enoch talks about the Son of Man overthrowing kings and these primordial chaos beasts waiting in the wings, he pivots right back to the physical mechanics of the weather.
He sees the hidden receptacles of lightning and thunder.
He sees how they are perfectly mathematically balanced. The text says when the lightning flashes, the thunder sounds, and the spirit literally pauses, making an equal division between them so they don't destroy the earth.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the precision is what fascinates me. Enoch even describes the spirits of the weather as having distinct personalities and jurisdictions.
He says the spirit of the sea is potent and strong. The spirit of the frost has its own assigned angel.
And my personal favorite detail. He says the spirit of snow has a solitary spirit within it that ascends like vapor, and this spirit is explicitly called refrigeration.
The spirit of refrigeration.
Yes.
I absolutely love that ancient minds conceptualize the cold as a specific assigned entity doing a job.
Dew, frost, rain, they are just meteorological phenomena. They are carefully measured and dispensed by angels who physically open the receptacles and pour out the exact commanded amount.
It is a universe that is micromanaged down to the very last drop of morning dew.
And that concept of intense, angelic micromanagement is the perfect thematic hook to bring us into the next major phase of Enoch's journey.
We're going to look at the clockwork universe,
or what scholars often call the astronomical book within Enoch.
Guided by the angel Uriel, the text shifts from visions of thrones and monsters to becoming deeply, almost obsessively, mathematically technical.
Uriel explains to Enoch the exact immutable laws of the luminaries, laying out a highly rigid 364-day solar calendar.
And when we say technical, we mean it reads like an ancient instruction manual. It is incredibly exacting.
The text describes the mechanics of heaven as a physical structure, having 6 gates in the east and 6 gates in the west.
The sun and the moon proceed through these gates in a highly regulated cyclical pattern to create the days, nights, and seasons.
For example, the text painstakingly details how the sun goes out through the 4th gate for exactly 30 days, then moves to the 5th gate.
And it calculates how the length of the daylight and nighttime changes by precise fractions, which it calls parts, as the sun moves from gate to gate.
It's an exhaustive accounting of celestial movement. It also dictates the behavior of the moon with the same rigidity,
stating that the moon's light is exactly 1/7 of the sun's light.
It describes how the moon receives its light in 14 distinct portions, gradually filling up to a full moon and then diminishing back to darkness.
So we have to stop here and ask a really practical question. Why 364 days?
Right.
The true solar year, as we know, is 365 1/4 days. Did the ancient authors just not know how long a year was, or is there a reason they are insisting on 364?
They were very observant to the skies, so they likely knew the actual solar year was slightly longer.
Yeah.
But the insistence on a 364-day calendar is deeply theological, not just astronomical.
The number 364 is mathematically significant because it divides perfectly by 7.
It equals exactly 52 weeks. In a 364-day calendar, the year doesn't shift. A specific date will always fall on the exact same day of the week, every single year.
So a festival or a Sabbath would never slide around the calendar.
Exactly. If the first day of the year is a Wednesday, it will always be a Wednesday. It completely removes the chaos of the lunar cycle or the messy fractions of a 365.25-day year.
It's an obsession with perfect, predictable, divine order. The calendar is a reflection of God's perfect mind. There are no fractions, no leap years, no shifting holy days.
And it's not just the sun and moon operating on this perfect grid. It's the winds as well.
Enoch sees 12 massive gates for the winds located at the extremities of the earth. Depending on which specific gate a wind blows through, it dictates the exact weather for a region.
If a wind comes from certain designated gates, it brings blessing, fruitfulness, health, and gentle dew.
But if it blows through other specific gates, it brings blight, drought, freezing cold, and absolute destruction.
So if you are listening to this and wondering, why on earth does a visionary prophetic text spend chapter after chapter doing math about the sun's gates and wind directions?
Right, what is the meaning of the clockwork?
Think about the context of everything we've discussed so far. The human world is full of chaos. Kings are corrupt and oppressive. People are violently subjugating each other.
Rebel angels have literally descended from the sky to mate with humans and teach them how to forge weapons of mass destruction.
The earth is a bloody, screaming mess. But when you look up at the sky, the sun rises exactly when it is supposed to.
It enters the exact gate Uriel said it would.
The moon goes through its phases exactly as commanded. The absolute, unyielding, mechanical precision of the stars, the sun, and the moon represents divine order.
The physical universe above is perfectly obedient.
That is a beautiful contrast. The heavens are obedient, while the earth is in rebellion.
Exactly. And in this text, sinners are characterized precisely as those who disrupt this perfect order.
In fact, Enoch prophesies that in the days of sinners the moon shall change its laws, and not be seen at its proper period, and the rain shall be restrained.
Human sin literally breaks the clockwork of the universe.
The theological message is that morality and cosmology are tied together. When humans sin, the math of the universe begins to fail.
That brings such incredible depth to the math sections. It's not just bookkeeping, it's a desperate plea for order in a chaotic world.
And speaking of the chaotic world, Enoch transitions from the clinical, mathematical precision of the stars right into a sweeping, surreal fever dream.
We are moving from the astronomical book into the dream visions. Here's where it gets really interesting. Enoch tells his son Methuselah about a dream he had in his youth, long before he married his wife Edna.
It is a symbolic history of the entire world, from the creation of humanity all the way to the final judgment, but it is told entirely through animals.
It is a brilliant, highly sophisticated use of allegory. But to understand the depths of what the author is saying about human nature, we have to map out the menagerie.
The dream starts simply enough with a white cow. This white cow represents the first man, Adam.
This white cow brings forth a red heifer and a black heifer, representing his sons Cain and Abel.
And true to the biblical narrative, Enoch sees the black heifer strike the red one and pursue it over the earth.
But then the scale of the vision expands dramatically, and things get very weird. Enoch looks up and sees a single star fall from heaven, which begins to eat and feed among the cows.
Then many more stars descend from the sky. And here's where it ties all the way back to the beginning of our deep dive.
These falling stars represent the Watchers.
The text says they acted after the manner of horses and began to approach the young cows.
The cows become pregnant and bring forth elephants, camels, and asses. These massive beasts represent the giant Nephilim offspring.
And immediately, these elephants, camels, and asses begin biting, swallowing, and devouring the cows.
The earth trembles in terror. It's a terrifying, surreal depiction of the Watchers' invasion, rendered in the logic of a dream.
Following this slaughter, Enoch sees 4 white men, which represent the archangels, descend from heaven.
One binds the first fallen star and casts it into a deep valley.
Another gives a sword to the elephants, camels, and asses, causing them to slaughter each other.
This is the exact divine judgment we discussed earlier, just translated into this animal allegory.
Then, a white cow becomes a man and builds a large ship. He and 3 other cows get in, and massive cataracts of water pour from a lofty roof, drowning all the elephants, camels, asses, and the corrupted cows.
This is, of course, Noah and the Great Flood.
After the flood recedes, a new flock emerges. The focus shifts to a flock of white sheep, which represents the righteous people, the Israelites.
But their existence is characterized by constant, brutal predation.
The text describes wolves, which represent the Egyptians, frightening and oppressing the sheep, throwing their young into deep water.
Later on, as history progresses, they are attacked by wild boars, foxes, and dogs, representing various other hostile surrounding nations.
Let's stop and think about the psychology behind this specific allegory for a moment.
Okay.
By casting humanity, and specifically the righteous, as mere livestock as sheep, and casting the angels as falling stars that turn into unnatural, dominant beasts, the author is completely stripping away all human agency.
That's incredibly observant. There are no human warriors in this dream.
None. It's a profound insight into how deeply vulnerable this society felt.
They didn't see themselves as powerful actors shaping the course of history.
They felt like defenseless sheep, surrounded by apex predators. They are entirely reliant on external intervention for survival. They are just waiting for the shepherd to return.
And the divine intervention, the Lord of the sheep, does eventually come into play. When the wolves pursue the sheep to a lake of water, the Lord of the sheep stands between them and parts the lake.
The sheep pass over safely, but the water suddenly returns and drowns the pursuing wolves.
It's a clear retelling of the Exodus story, but the allegory continues through the centuries. Eventually, the sheep themselves wander astray and go blind.
So the Lord of the sheep makes a fateful decision.
He calls 70 shepherds and resigns the care of the sheep to them. He tells these 70 shepherds exactly how many sheep they are allowed to destroy as punishment.
But he secretly appoints an angelic scribe to stand above them and strictly record their actions.
These 70 shepherds represent the angelic beings assigned to rule over the 70 nations of the earth.
But, as with the watchers before them, the administration fails. The shepherds are corrupt.
The angelic scribe records that they are killing and destroying far more sheep than the Lord commanded.
They're exceeding their mandate, leaving the blind sheep to be devoured by lions and tigers.
The sheep just can't catch a break. Finally, the Lord of the sheep returns in absolute wrath. He takes the sealed book of records from the scribe.
The corrupt shepherds are judged, found guilty, and thrust into a flaming abyss.
The blind, apostate sheep are also cast into an abyss of fire.
And then, the Lord of the sheep brings out the old house and erects a massive new house, a lofty tower for the flock, where all the remaining righteous sheep are gathered.
Their eyes are finally open and they are safe from the beasts forever. It is a complete panoramic timeline of human history, wrapping up with an apocalyptic bow.
It's a masterful way to summarize the human experience, portraying the vulnerability of the righteous as sheep surrounded by predatory nations, and the ultimate, inescapable, meticulously recorded justice of the Lord of the sheep.
It's breathtaking in its scope. And that epic historical overview brings us into the final major section of our journey.
We are going to look at the Epistle of Enoch, the 10 weeks, and the deeply unsettling story of the glowing baby.
This section starts with what scholars call the Apocalypse of Weeks. Enoch takes a different approach to history here.
Instead of animals, he divides all of human existence into 10 distinct weeks or periods of time.
Yes, he lays out a rigid chronological progression.
He says he was born in the first week, which he characterizes as a time of judgment and righteousness. The second week brings great wickedness and fraud.
As he outlines the subsequent weeks, we see periods of deceit, the building of temples, and the dispersion of the elect.
But it all accelerates toward a climax.
In the 8th week, a sword is given to the righteous to execute justice upon oppressors.
In the 9th week, the righteous judgment is revealed to the whole world.
And finally, in the 10th week, an everlasting judgment is executed upon the watchers.
The old heaven departs, a new heaven appears, and sin is never even named there again forever. It's a very structured, inevitable countdown to the absolute end of evil.
And leading up to that end, Enoch issues some incredibly harsh, direct woes to the corrupt people living in his time. He doesn't hold back at all.
And what's fascinating is how much his ancient complaints map onto very modern anxieties.
Again, just reporting the text here, but he says, "Woe to those who build up their houses with crime, predicting their grand estates will be demolished from the foundations."
He says, woe to those who trust in their amassed silver and gold, because they will be removed from their riches suddenly.
The economic anxieties are very prominent here.
He specifically calls out those who use false weights and measures to cheat the poor, and those who squander massive wealth that wasn't obtained in righteousness.
He mocks the corrupt elite for thinking their backroom crimes are hidden, warning them that every single act of oppression is daily recorded by angels in heaven.
He even says, woe to you who drink water at pleasure, for suddenly shall you be recompensed, consumed, and withered, because you have forsaken the fountain of life.
Imagine the wealth inequality required for drinking water at pleasure to be viewed as a sin of extreme gluttony.
The language is unyielding. It reflects a society where the gap between the wealthy, oppressive elite and the suffering, impoverished righteous is so vast that only divine cosmic intervention can possibly balance the scales.
The system is so rigged that human justice is impossible. Only the destruction of the world can fix it.
But right after these intense, heavy warnings of impending doom, the text pivots and gives us an incredible, highly visual, and deeply personal story.
It's the story of the birth of Lamech's son.
The text says that when the baby is born, his flesh is as white as snow and as red as a rose.
The hair on his head is like pure white wool, and it's long.
And when the newborn baby opens his eyes, they are so unnaturally bright that they illuminate the entire house like the sun.
And if that isn't terrifying enough, the newborn baby immediately opens his mouth and speaks, blessing the Lord of righteousness.
You can vividly imagine Lamech's reaction to this.
He is absolutely terrified.
He thinks the baby is not human. He runs to his father, Methuselah, in a panic and says, I have begotten a son, unlike 2 other children, resembling the offspring of the angels of heaven. I am afraid lest something miraculous should take place on earth in his days.
And given the history of the Watchers we discussed at the very beginning of this deep dive, Lamech's fear is entirely 100% justified.
He thinks his wife has been visited by one of the fallen angels.
Exactly. It's a deeply rooted generational trauma showing up in a family drama.
The scars of the Watchers' invasion are so deep that a unique-looking child immediately sparks the terror that the celestial nightmare is happening all over again.
So Methuselah decides he needs definitive answers from the only human who knows the secrets of the angels.
He travels to the very ends of the earth to consult his father Enoch, who is hidden away. Methuselah tells him all about this glowing, speaking newborn and Lamech's terrible fear.
And Enoch provides the final, sweeping prophecy we see in this section.
He reassures Methuselah that there is no deception and no angelic foul play. The child is entirely human.
He tells them to name him Noah, which means consolation or rest, because this specific child is destined to console the earth.
Enoch reveals the grim, inevitable truth. A great destruction, a massive deluge of water, is coming to wash the earth of all its deep-seated corruption.
The flood is specifically designed to wipe out the remaining carnal giants and the unnatural impiety that the Watchers seeded into the world.
But he promises that Noah and his 3 sons will be the sole survivors. They will be saved from the corruption, and humanity will restart through them.
So, synthesizing this entire epic journey we've been on with you today, we have covered an unbelievable scale of material.
We started with a rogue faction of angels on a mountain, making blood oaths to take human wives, resulting in 450-foot giants that literally ate the ecosystem.
We looked at the illicit transfer of what they considered forbidden technology. The downloading of swords, armor, mirrors, and makeup that permanently altered the trajectory and psychology of humanity.
We journeyed with Enoch as he crossed the veil and ascended into a terrifyingly beautiful crystal palace, viewing a throne of impossible frost and fire.
We dug into the precise, unyielding mechanics of a 364-day universe where the sun, the moon, and even the spirit of refrigeration are micromanaged by angelic forces.
We deciphered a vivid, traumatic dream where stars become predatory beasts and vulnerable sheep are rescued by a parting lake.
And finally, we ended with the birth of a glowing baby named Noah, destined to survive a world-ending flood and hit the reset button on a corrupted planet.
It is an overwhelming amount of lore. So what does this all mean? Why does a text this ancient, this strange, and this mathematically dense still resonate so powerfully for you listening today?
It's a great question.
I think it suggests that the Book of Enoch speaks directly to a very timeless, very deep human anxiety. It's the profound fear of unchecked technological and societal progress, symbolized so perfectly by Azazel's forbidden knowledge of weapons and vanity.
It's the fear that we as a species are constantly acquiring tools and data that we simply don't have the spiritual or ethical wisdom to use responsibly.
And this fear of our own progress clashes directly with our deep, inherent desire for a perfectly ordered, just, and reliable universe.
We long for a universe like the 364-day calendar Enoch describes, where everything has its exact rightful place.
Where the weather's balanced so it doesn't destroy us, and where every single wrong committed by the powerful elites is meticulously recorded in a heavenly book to be righted at the end of days.
It is the ultimate desperate desire for justice and order in a chaotic, unpredictable world. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you go about your day. When you look at Enoch's absolute obsession with the exact calculated measurements of the cosmos, his strict categorization of weather patterns down to individual spirits, and the core idea that humanity's corruption was accelerated by the transfer of forbidden advanced technological knowledge from celestial beings, could this ancient text be viewed not just as a religious apocalypse, but as one of humanity's very first attempts at science fiction?
That is an incredible thought.
Or even, in its own ancient way, an attempt at a unified theory of everything, trying to explain the math, the morality, and the monsters all in one grand equation. Think about it. Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us. We'll see you next time.